Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 304. Today, I'm joined by Mike Pekovich and Anissa Kapsalis in the Fine Woodworking shop, and it's a little bit noisy, and the table we're sitting at is a little bit thumpy, and Anissa gives me a hard time by slamming her water bottle down on the table from time to time, but it's a hilarious episode, and somehow this episode, just about everything we say leads back to Chris Becksvoort. Before we get started, as always, Thursday mornings, I sit down to do these voiceovers, and I get an email from Sarah in marketing, and she says, "Hey, Ben, Theodore Roosevelt was the first president to be submerged in a submarine and the first president to own a car. And your listeners can give the gift of a 3-month Fundamentals of Woodworking journey to their favorite woodworker for the low price of $20 by visiting finewoodworking.com/giftfundamentals. One word, finewoodworking.com/giftfundamentals. Also, if they head to tauntonstore.com, there's free standard shipping on orders of $49 or more. So listen to Sarah in marketing. She knows what's up and always has fun facts for us, and I'm appreciative of her for that. On with the episode. Do you want to just jump in?
What else would you want to talk about?
I don't know. Normally I have I throw something weird at y'all. How'd your class go, Mike?
Good. Two weekends, non-contiguous weekends, a 3-day class to start. And then we're following up with 2 days in December. It's a little entry hall table.
Do they have homework?
They don't, because not everybody has a shop. And even though it's like 3 weeks away, that can go by really, really quick. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, what was I supposed to do? So I'd rather have everybody at the same place with the same things to do than try to take advantage of that. It's really more for, I can assess after 3 days where we're at. And then if I have prep work to do between, I can modulate how much more we have left to do or throw extra things in there if they're too fast. So
now we have 3 drawers.
Yes. Right.
This is at Bob's? At the Connecticut Valley? Yeah.
Is it weird? I assume you've done non-contiguous classes before.
Yeah.
Is it weird, like when you come back?
A little bit. What's really good is that Thursdays, day 4, is the day everybody just blows up and makes dumb mistakes because you're tired by that point. And say a 5-day class, it's like Wednesday you say, oh, look at what we've done so far. But Thursday, it's more like, oh my gosh, look how much more we have to do because we only have 1 more day.
Thank you, Anissa.
Sorry. I do.
So having the break in essence, between day 3 and day 4, they come back fresh for 2 more days, and it's good.
Have you gotten to the point, Mike, where, you do this if I spend 8 hours woodworking in a class situation or even at home, I'm toast.
Yeah.
That's a long day.
Yeah.
It's like every woodworker dreams of going full time. And then I do 2 8-hour days in a row, and I'm like, this is rough.
Yes.
Are you that way, Anissa?
I haven't gotten 8 hours in my shop in maybe since the wall unit days, maybe since then.
Yeah.
But no, it just flies. Oh,
really?
Yeah. It just flies. But I feel the same way here too. Especially when I come in the office, there's not enough time in the day. It just flies by, and you kind of get into that groove. No, I could sit in that shop all day, every day. But it might be different if I were doing it to make a living.
Yeah.
If you had to
if I had to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
and
you
if I
got
had
to be
deadlines and I had to put out a product by a specific time frame, and I had overhead and all of that. But nowadays, at least that's what I'm recalling.
And clients rethinking stain colors after they'd already approved a little color block. And
oh man, there was somebody on the forum recently, this week, that they were like, I spent 3 days, and And the client's like, it's too red after approving it twice.
Right. But I mean, in that situation, not to fault that person, I get it. But yeah, because color balance varies everywhere. So it's like you put stain on a piece of wood and you give that to them and say, take this in your home. How does this look?
But if it's a refinish, you don't have, it was a refinish, so it was an existing table.
Matching, yeah.
Oh,
So
I thought they had made it, stained it. They didn't like it. Now they have to like re-strip it and re-stain it.
No.
I just wouldn't answer my phone. Just wouldn't.
That's where ghosting came from.
Yeah.
I'd have my kids answer. They'd be so annoyed they would just hang up. No, like on a somewhat, something that you just said about color balance and taking the piece home, the sample, and seeing it in place. Christina Madsen, whose work is just phenomenal, so beautiful and delicate and different and
museum level.
Yeah.
Work.
When I was shooting with her, I have somewhat of an art background, not a ton, but we were talking a lot about color because she uses a lot of color in her work and in her carvings. And it really hit home for me when she said like how the different colors affect one another, how they impact one another. And so we were looking at this piece. It was a beautiful poppy cabinet, really incredible piece. And I think it's in the article. There's a photo of it in
awesome.
there. So she was making, she had a sample cabinet that she made before she made the larger piece, and she had a bunch of sample pieces. And as she was painting, you see this red and white piece, but she was showing me how the white paint looks white next to the red, but it was like a light lilac color. And she had to mix it that way because the white wasn't looking white next to the red, but this purple tinted color reads as white when they came together.
Yeah.
It was super fascinating. So
There's like, I hear about that from my wife, Katie, where, when she's weaving, there's colors intertwining and the way that they react and everything. And it seems like that's a whole field of study almost, like that, Joseph Albers, Annie Albers, color theory thing. So this is a woodworking podcast.
Yeah. But people use color in some of their work.
Yeah.
Some people use color in their work.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's where all the oops paints come from in like Lowe's and Home Depot because people get them home it's not.
I know where all the oops paints go.
No, to me.
I know.
How do you know that?
Remember, it was 7 years ago. I just got like the Facebook 7 years ago thing. We did the kid thing. Yeah. We did the kid stools where we had our kids come in. It couldn't have been, maybe it was 6 years ago, but we had our kids come in and make the Chris Becksvoort, the kid version of the Chris Becksvoort stool. And you brought in
tons of,
more oops paint than I knew existed. I worked in a hardware store.
I don't know why. I can't. So I just bought 2 huge 5-gallon buckets of exterior paint. Like I've been fretting. My front porch needs rehabbing. So, it just needs paint. And I've been just trying to debate, like, what colors do I use on this house? And I'm looking at all the neighbors, and I just got so tormented by the color choice.
Thought, what did somebody not want?
That's what I did. I was just like, you know what? And they're nice colors, and it's probably not what I would have chosen, but that's it. And it's $50 for a 5-gallon bucket of really good exterior paint that nobody wanted, as opposed to like $300 or $350. So I was just like, these are the colors that I'm painting.
Is that what a 5-gallon bucket of paint goes for? $300?
Paint is so expensive, and I don't believe in buying cheap paint.
No, right. But no, haven't bought paint in a long time, but ouch.
Yeah.
What's your go-to brand of paint?
Whatever's in the section.
I love how you have I refuse to buy poor quality paint.
But I don't care what color. But I refuse to pay for the high quality paint.
You are oddly specific in your needs.
Yeah.
I need high quality paint that nobody wants.
It's just crazy how much paint costs. And I don't know, it's like it tempts you. You go through the oops paint and then you start thinking, oh, I'm going to paint this that color. And you never do. It just sits in your basement until you, whatever. So I am going to paint the porch and the door, though. Anyway.
Right on. Well, I think we got off to a nice random start there. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So speaking of Chris Becksvoort.
Can I check one more time?
Yeah. For the audio-only podcast listeners, Anissa is checking her phone because she's texting Chris.
Chris Becksvoort, why have you forsaken me?
Title 1. All right. So this... did I do it again? Did I cut the person's name out? I refuse to continue on without knowing this person's name.
Yeah, it wasn't on
I keep
there.
doing it. I keep doing it. I'm sorry. I do these in a rush. And this one is from Joe. That's why, because Joe... I was going to put it at the top. All right. Every other week, I very much look forward to the podcast. I especially enjoy the whimsical musical outros Ben does from time to time. I apologize for not doing those from time to time anymore. In the very near future, I'm going to start making Christian Becksvoort's icon 15-drawer chest as shown in his book, Shaker Inspiration. 5 decades of fine craftsmanship.
Is that the tall, skinny one with all the drawers?
I think so.
Yeah, I'll show you a picture in a minute. Or I won't because I'll make too much noise. I've noticed on this piece, as well as many of the others in fine woodworking, that the bottom rail has a graceful arch. Becksvoort makes this out of 3 pieces of wood with 45-degree miters. I would be ever so grateful if you could please find out why he uses 3 pieces rather than 1 piece of wood. Many thanks for the help over the years, and I look forward to when Anissa has another video with Becksvoort eating strawberries and chatting. That was one of my favorite fine woodworking videos. So strawberry season's over.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So next year.
Yeah, maybe we should shoot for blueberries.
Ooh.
In Maine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blueberries are after strawberries, right?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe, up there, maybe July?
Okay.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Well, grain direction, right?
I would think
if you
so.
have the out of just a single piece going across, then the leggy portions of that are going to be going across grain,
right?
As opposed to vertical.
Plus, it looks cool.
Looks cool. It's got that little miter.
Yeah.
What's often the case is that miter is not always at 45 degrees because sometimes the leg portions are a little bit wider than that top rail portion is. So now you're creating a quote-unquote miter where 2 parts of different widths are intersecting. And he has a cool tip for creating that off-angle miter. And he did I think it was a glass front bookcase article he did in the 120s.
Oh.
Yeah, way back.
He did that chest of drawers with the same thing too, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's splined, right? He splines the miter.
Yes. It's a great detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's easy to assume that all miters are 45 degrees.
Right.
Like when you look at that, you're like, oh, it's that piece of cake.
I mean, is miters the definition of the word miter 45 degrees, or is it just an angle?
It's just an angle. But we assume it's not.
I mean, if you don't know the answer to that, I don't know who does.
He's doing that thing where he does know the answer, but he's posing the question.
I don't know.
I mean, so like miter, most miters are 45 degrees, but yeah, a 20, if you have an octagon or something like that, those joints are miters.
You call those miters? Yeah. Okay.
At
60 degrees, whatever. 22 and a half degrees. So that bookcase, it was like 120s, I believe, because it was published, I think after it got to the magazine, soon after I got to the magazine. And it was a very simple piece. I didn't really know who Chris Becksvoort was, other than I learned how to cut dovetails from him in a Taunton book. But it's a very simple, unassuming piece. You look at it and you just say, okay. But then in working on the article where you actually have to understand what went into this simple looking piece, and you just realize, wow, there is a lot there. And it is just such an elegantly simple piece. It's not overly complicated. It isn't like, wow, I picked the most complicated way to make this when I didn't have to. It's just so well constructed. And I was struck by the notion that a woodworker has to have a lot of patience, that someone living with their piece will sort of eventually come to appreciate all of the aspects that go into it that might be kind of hidden from view at first glance. So that was a really informative piece for me. And I learned how to do the miter at off angle.
Do you think, though, that even design-wise, like Shaker furniture looks simple and easy to design? And it's like, but it's one of those things where it's like you get one dimension off.
Yeah, there's no place to hide.
And it just looks not good.
Yeah. A lot of Shaker furniture looks not good.
Yeah, sometimes the proportions are wacky, right?
Yeah, you go to like
and we
a
just
Shaker
lost
village.
a chunk of our audience.
No, it's not the stereotypical stuff which has been kind of refined down to sort of quote unquote commercial Shaker. If you go to like a Shaker village where every single piece was made by a person once, and I think they get a little bit bored because they're doing like really,
for multiple reasons,
really like off the wall things that's sort of like outsider art in a lot of ways. But I think the pinnacle of the work is so clean and so modern feeling. And like a lot of the Danish modern, mid-century modern designers were referencing Shaker furniture as their design. So it is a quintessentially modern form, but there's some wacky stuff out there.
How many Shaker community museum type places have you all been to?
None.
What?
You haven't been to the one by Chris in the meeting house with the that we always shoot furniture at?
Nope.
Anissa?
I know.
Have you not been to Hancock in Pittsfield?
None.
Oh, wow.
None.
Wow.
And I want to go to all of them. And some of the ones in like
is there any in New York?
Yeah.
That are like open?
Mount Lebanon.
Okay.
An hour from me.
Okay.
Yeah. I know. And there are some more west that I really want to go to too. Like there's the one in
Pleasant Hill, Kentucky is fantastic.
Yeah.
That was the first one I'd gone to. You can actually spend the night there.
There's a smaller one in southern Kentucky, outside of Franklin, Kentucky, that I think Katie and I, when we lived in Nashville, used to just drive for hours on end and go nowhere. And we just stumbled across it. And that was like kind of my introduction to Shaker furniture. But yeah, Hancock is fantastic. The one by Chris. What is?
Well, it's one by,
And then there's one in New Hampshire by Tom McLaughlin.
Is that Canterbury?
Canterbury, yep.
So,
Yeah.
Tom lives literally across the street.
Pretty much, yeah. There's a lot of, and I'm glad that they're kept up well.
Yeah.
And but I think where I was getting before we were aghast by Anissa's response.
None.
Is that it's nice because
Sorry.
Did you just curse?
I'm so sorry.
This is an all ages podcast, Anissa.
I'm sorry.
So that not just the quintessential pieces survive. You know, like the quintessential pieces are the things that survive because people love them and cherish them and duplicate and replicate them. And that's what you know from like the Shaker style furniture catalog.
Yeah.
But in these communities, it is like this thing has just always been in this room. It was always in Brother John's room, and that's where it is, you know? So.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like a Hancock Shaker Village, the furniture is cool. You look at it in a book, it's like, yeah, this is nice. But to see it in its setting, to see the architecture, to see the ironwork of the little tiny wood stoves and the details on that, and just to see it in its setting, you get a much better understanding of it in context.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And then one room, they did studies on the paint because everything's like super muted, ochre, red, brown, kind of a gray, faded gray, blue. But they figured out what the original paint colors were, and they repainted a room in the original colors. It is like psychedelic.
It's
like, wow.
Intense.
Yeah.
Those shakers were not screwing around.
At Hancock, it's like, oh man, it's joy of life. It's like, okay, I have a whole different understanding of who these people were.
It is legit. Wow. Shy was not their nature with color.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I have to go. I have to go there.
We should all go. We should do a field trip.
Yeah. Okay. We went to the Wadsworth Athenaeum, right? As a group.
Yep.
And then we all went rock climbing together. That was cool.
Wow. You guys really got a lot of work done back in the day, didn't you?
Well, it's only 2 field trips. They were fun, though. They were good.
Yeah.
So that was the long way of answering grain direction.
Yeah, grain direction.
Yeah, because otherwise it'd be weak. I have seen ones that are just one piece cut out, but you can't have that deep of a notch, if you will. Right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, so it needs to be a more subtle arc on the foot. All right, well, let's see. This next question is from Tom. I'm reworking a bench that belonged to my mother's cousin, who is also a woodworker. This was his primary bench, and a lot of furniture was built on it. When I flipped the bench over, there were 3 deep mortises cut across the bench. These mortises are 1.5 inches deep, 3/4 of an inch wide, and in the 2 1/4 inch thick top. The top was obviously intended for some other purpose. I have some 2 by 3/4 inch hard maple pieces that I intend to cut in 3/4 inch blocks and glue them into the mortises. I plan to glue them in such a way as to maintain the grain direction. Since the stock I have is only 3/4 of an inch, I'll have to stack them 2 deep to fill the mortise, and I plan to stagger the glue joints. The questions. Obviously, I've got a lot of end grain to end grain. The glue joint at the bottom of the mortises between the blocks will be side grain and will be very strong, but the joint between the blocks and the sides of the mortise will tend to be open grain. Should I use Type-On or should I just use Type-On and accept the end grain joint, switch glues to epoxy, which may work better with end grain, something else? And then he says, why am I doing this? I have some hard maple on hand that is sized almost perfectly for the job. I have the bench apart and flipped upside down, and if I'm going to do anything about it, now is the time. And Mike is looking at me like he hasn't read these questions. He hasn't looked at the pictures.
Yes.
So I am going to hand my laptop over to Mike. So on the bottom of this workbench, it looks like it's notched out to hook onto the top of a cabinet or something, or it looks like maybe notched out for hardware.
So we have the long slots.
Yeah, so it's long slots routed across the width of the bench top. And
so potatoes.
Yeah.
I guess it's same difference. Okay. Yeah, the little crosses at the end almost looks like it could have been for like a threaded rod with some sort of bolt at the
bolts
end,
or something.
Yeah. Right.
It made me wonder if it was part of the manufacturing for like clamping purposes.
Yeah, maybe.
So, okay.
So, I think structurally, I don't get a sense that structurally those things are an issue.
No.
So if it's just cosmetic, and I accept that, yeah, there's probably not a good reason for you to have to do this, but you see it, it's there, and you want to do it. And this is an important part of woodworking. It's a safe outlet for sometimes borderline unhealthy obsessions. So,
So basically, you're saying if you need to get this out, get this out.
Get it out. Get it out here. Everyone will benefit from it. Glue it in, call it good. Don't worry about any end grain. If it's super loose, epoxy is a true gap filling glue. So that's going to give you more strength if there's any gappiness. But again, you're probably just wanting to get these filled up, get enough glue in there so they don't fall out. Plane it or sand it or route it flush, call it good. I wouldn't stress on the glue.
If I were going to do it, I wouldn't stress on any of it. I would just plug them and flush them down to the rest of the bottom.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't even bother filling them. Just turn the thing over. How often are you going to see it? Never. But I also get the concept of like, this will drive me crazy knowing that those grooves are in there.
So I think I stopped. The question continues. It seems to me that only having 3/4 of an inch of wood above those mortises constitutes a weak spot. So,
okay,
sure. 3/4 of an inch is pretty sturdy still.
It's such a short,
small.
Yeah. I wasn't worried about that.
Although the entire top rests on the bench frame, the top stretchers are set so that the top rests on them all the way around the perimeter from leg to leg. So this isn't likely to flex and crack, but if it does flex, it'll be along the end grain joints. For me, you are right, Mike. If you need to get this out, get it out, Tom. But this is not like flip the benchtop back over. It's been that way through one woodworker's career. It's part of the history of the bench, fine. But the weak points are not of any concern.
Yeah. But it's a safe place if you've never attempted a patch like this. It's a really safe way to go about doing it.
Now,
getting that
this
experience.
Is an interesting thing, though. Is it worth? Because it's an oddly shaped patch.
Mm-hmm.
It is, right?
Is it worth? If you were gonna do this, would you route it out to a uniformly shaped patch? Because you know how.
That's
like
a good question.
Audie and Ivy.
Yep.
Their patches and their slab work. Well, their patches are the art of their.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just, but
if he's going to do that, that should be the top of his bench then.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about. Yeah, but
that would be cool. That would be super cool.
Yeah, but all right. The point where I was going is sometimes it's easier to make a uniform recess.
The idea of you make a mistake bigger, which sounds scary, but in a way it makes it easier to fix.
Well, and also you would also now you could make a template and use bearings to offset that template to make the piece fit. Yeah. So like you have your one template, route out the recess, then use that same template to route out the patch.
That's what Brian Newell does with those feathers.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You should put feathers on this, Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or feathers and pixelated feathers.
Yeah. Combine the two.
To address this issue of structural integrity. So, okay, let's say it's not necessary. However, this notion of you have a dado, so it's essentially a groove going across the grain. So if you put a patch in, I like the idea that the grain is going in the same direction. You don't have a cross grain thing. And to your point, that end grain to end grain along that, if it does flex, okay, let's say that is where it's going to fail. So what do we do there? So you can patch it, and then you can route some grooves, meaning grooves going with the grain across this space, and then glue splines into those grooves because those splines are now going long grain across that. So it's in essence, we're putting stitches across a wound, and those stitches, those splines going with the grain perpendicular to that filled dado is in essence going to give you that structural strength that you're not getting from that end grain glue up.
I was listening to most of that, but I was also thinking about, hear me out.
Oh.
Okay. Get like a steel plate, inlay the steel plate in, widen the holes on the outside.
Okay, so we've got expansion.
And now you have room to hide something.
Yeah, like a little tiny drawer, a really long, skinny drawer.
Or like you could mount like a pencil distributing device. There's a word for that.
Yeah.
That is eluding me right now.
A bubblegum machine. You could have some kind of crank that.
But this recess turns into a feature, a really cool feature that you don't tell people about. And then all of a sudden you just like, bloop, and they're like, what the heck just happened?
See, this is
why I don't get anything done.
This is right. Yeah. This is why we don't get anything done.
Spray foam. You could just stuff.
Probably good.
You've had one other episode where you had two curses.
Sorry.
Yeah. So are we going to go for the record?
No. I'm done. I'm finished.
I gotta find a good way of bleeping. There's got to be a novel way of bleeping you out this time.
Okay. I'll stop. I don't remember cursing on a podcast before, but
yeah, I remember
I'll take your word for it.
All right, let's take a quick break. New Concepts has released the newest in its line of innovative marquetry, a smaller, more affordable marquetry saw that makes precision sawing available to everyone. The new compact marquetry saw has an 8-inch throat and the same adjustable ball bearing guide tower as the much larger Lee Marshall Edition marquetry saw, so it can handle double bevel inlay with ease. The smaller size makes it perfect for those who are just starting out or who work on smaller items and don't need the reach of the larger marquetry saw. The compact marquetry saw uses New Concepts' dovetail mounting system, so it can be removed from the workbench and stored in seconds, reducing its shop footprint to almost nothing. See it at newconcepts.com. That's KNEWCONCEPTS.com.
Hey, I'm Tom McLaughlin. I hope you'll join me for my Getting Started with Veneer course. In that course, I will share with you all the tools, materials, and techniques to get a great foundation in veneering. I hope you'll join me. Sign up today.
For more information, head on over to finewoodworking.com/veneering course. finewoodworking.com/veneering course. So it's become clear that Mike did not read the questions. Did you read our Slack conversation about the new segment?
No. There's such a thing?
So I'm confirming so many things. Mike does not read Slack.
I tried to, yeah, no. Because I was wondering, I didn't think I'd gotten an email about our questions.
Do you want a stool too?
No.
Okay.
I'm just teasing you.
All right. So the segment that Anissa came up with for today's episode is most embarrassing woodworking moment.
Isn't that like smooth move?
That's what Ben said.
That's what I said. But
yes, it is, I guess.
I think it's
nuanced.
It's an elevated version. Like,
well, it was not
other
just a
people's
smooth move. It's like a public smooth move.
Yeah,
hence the embarrassment.
Which, I mean, honestly, we are all on record with many of them. So most of our smooth moves get publicized, if you will, to an audience. I remember my most embarrassing woodworking moment, though. Or do you want to go first?
No, you go.
Okay. I was making a shaker style candle stand, and like I said earlier, wow, okay, yeah. If you vary off the pattern of the piece you are duplicating, you are in risky territory. I made a change to the leg shape, which is atrocious. And I tried to live with it. I tried to like it. I tried to buy into it. And it sits next to my father's recliner, and it is undoable. There are times when I sit there and I'm talking to my parents and I stare at it and I go, what am I going to do with that when that comes back to me? Am I going to throw this out? I think I'm going to. I don't want it. They are very proud of it. They love it.
Aww.
There are elements of it that are wonderful, but it's awful. But that's not even the embarrassing part. The embarrassing part is that I was building this thing and got through building it and went to put finish on it.
I am so sorry.
Your phone is making noise.
I forgot I had this in. Chris Becksvoort just texted me. I'm so sorry.
And you have your AirPods in and it's reading the text to you.
I didn't know. Could you hear what the text was saying?
No, I couldn't make it out. Okay. I knew that you were getting a text in your ear.
I'm so sorry.
So we'll come back to Chris's response.
Okay.
The embarrassing part was that I somehow worked on this for weeks without realizing that the what would we call the centerpiece, the stem of the tripod table?
Column,
thank you. Was maple, and the rest of it was cherry.
And that was something that
wasn't intentional?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
oh.
I put finish on it, and all of a sudden it's like, well, that's not cherry. And it was one of those like, how do you not realize that this piece that you've worked on for hours is maple and not cherry?
Well, how long ago was that?
I was working here.
You've been here for a little while.
Yeah, so it was probably about 6 years ago.
Okay.
Well, sometimes cherry's very light.
That's what I was telling myself is sometimes cherry's light, and then, until you get finish on something, you expect that cherry to darken and that maple to amber and,
Yeah. So all three legs were cherry, though.
All three legs in the top were cherry.
The column was maple.
And the column was maple. So I painted it.
Oh, well, there's okay.
I painted it black.
You could defend that.
Yeah, that was my design choice. That was deliberate.
No, there was plenty to defend.
I would like to see a photo. No,
it's. I'll show you a photo. I'll post the photo.
Yeah.
So did you paint the whole thing black, or just
no?
the
I just
column?
painted the base black. So actually,
base and legs.
That's nice. So the base and the legs are the whole thing is black.
Yeah,
and then a nice cherry top, and it's beautiful as long as you don't look at the legs. The legs look like the back end of a rocket ship.
Why is that bad?
It's just bad. It's not good.
Soupy, like curvy, pointy, like the fins of a rocket ship.
They're like it looks like out of the Jetsons.
Yeah,
like a fat, chunky rocket ship fin.
Yeah,
and I really thought like I will like this eventually. I wanted to change something. There was two elements to the design of Chris's that I changed. One of them played out good. The bottom of the column I left as an octagon. I did not turn it, and I liked that. There was Michael Leggett, furniture maker, Hudson Valley furniture maker, that he had done some columns that were octagons that went into the round, and I just really liked that interaction. So I liked that element of it, but the leg shape was just not good. So I will stand by it being not good. But it's really the fact that I did not realize I was working with maple and thought I was working with cherry.
Okay.
Which nobody would know because it's painted.
I know.
But you just told everybody.
Here we are.
I think every single piece I've ever made fits that category somehow of, I wish I would have done that different, or I don't know how that is sitting with me right now, or I wish I would have spent a few more dollars on wood and not settled for pre-surface 3/4 stock, which was skinny 3/4, and now everything looks undersized. Or my first arts and crafts cabinet had door panels that I just used plywood because they were just flat and I think it was red oak instead of white oak plywood. And on top of that, I think that plywood doesn't fume really well, maybe because it's so thin.
Oh, interesting.
So I stare at that every day. But the next piece I had made, kind of the arts and crafts display case that was in the magazine, was a direct beneficiary of everything I did wrong on that other piece. So,
but that's why I think your mentality of like, just get back in and build another whatever is so smart, because then the lessons you've learned have been proven out, and there was a benefit to the mistake, but I build one of something and then move on.
Yeah, but it's still sticking in your craw, which means that is informing a lot of decisions ever since then.
The main one is stick to the Becksvoort plan.
Or wood selection, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Anissa?
So I saw a post probably on Instagram. Somebody was filling this parquet floor. They were putting this thin layer of some substance, and it was filling all those cracks, and they were just... So that got me thinking about my floor in my house. You've both been in my house. And so my most embarrassing woodworking moment is somewhat similar to yours in terms of wood selection or wood species, a kind of thing. This is going back a really long time. But when I first moved into this house, the former owners had shag carpet everywhere. And every wall in the entire house was wallpapered with pink floral wallpaper. And there were no actual doors. They were all bifold doors. And they had the wallpaper going across the doors. So they were like incognito kind of in the room. So you have this blue shag carpet everywhere. And then you have the pink floral wallpaper across the bifold doors. And the first things that went were the wallpaper and the rugs. And so I wanted to put hardwood floors in the house, but I could only do a couple rooms at a time. And I went back to my hometown in Pennsylvania to a lumber mill that somebody recommended that, milled all the flooring there. And I went to this lumber mill and I picked out the flooring, and I thought I was getting some really exotic hardwood floor, because instead of just saying it was poplar, he called it tulip poplar.
Oh, no.
So I was just thinking about this the other day, and I was like, oh, and it was really, I like poplar.
Yeah.
And it was really beautiful, and, it was very greens and purples at that point, and and I thought it was something different than just like poplar. So 2 rooms of my house are poplar flooring, and then as I bought more flooring, I went back to the same guy, and instead of getting all poplar, I got stacks of mixed hardwood with some of the poplar in there to kind of just... So, yeah, I think about that every once in a while. I feel like I got a little bit... I think nobody was buying his poplar flooring. He got me to buy his poplar flooring. Anyway.
Oh, did you like it once it got in? Like before you...
I mean, in comparison to the blue shag rugs, sure. I mean, bathroom, kitchen had the blue shag rugs too.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a choice.
Yes, it is a choice. But so, yeah, I liked it. And I installed it. And, yeah.
Does poplar work as flooring, or is it not hard enough?
It has character now.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a pine floor.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I think poplar gets a really bad rap.
I do too.
Yeah. Went out on a photo shoot to photograph a Finnish arts and crafts table by, I think, Rex Alexander. The house was out in Ohio, which is fine. And it was a nice house. Like, it was a custom built house. But I think all the flooring, all the trim was all in poplar. And it had kind of aged to that nice kind of streaky brown look.
Yeah.
And I think seeing a nice house with poplar in place kind of legitimized it for me. And I was kind of open enough to say, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. So I did like poplar. I used it a lot as secondary woods, or if I'm painting something, but I just found that poplar can be fairly unstable and move a lot. I had made some door frames out of poplar that I'd painted white, and they didn't stay particularly flat. Mm-hmm. So ever since then, I think it's just the workability sometimes of poplar is difficult. It gets a little bit fuzzy or
it does.
bowed. But I think it's fine.
Back in the day, I used to, I was doing a lot of like laminated multicolor work or whatever, and I liked the whiteness of sapwood poplar. Mm-hmm. And I remember in the lumberyard, I was going through the stack and I found like this it was 100% sapwood. I was like, jackpot. And then I went to rip it and it was like, whoa, this is where kickback comes from. Wow, this is like grabbing my riving knife right now and I can't even push it. That was the first time it was like, okay, woodworking is dangerous, folks.
Yeah.
I think the sapwood, and I wonder if poplar was milled up with the thoughtfulness of white oak.
I don't know. I think it might just be really fast-growing wood or something. I don't know.
If there's any like sawyers out there, in the comments, don't email me. In the comments or in the show notes, or on the Discord, let us know if it's possible to mill up poplar thoughtfully enough
as a fine furniture as well. I mean, that kind of brings to question. I don't think I've ever seen a piece of poplar that wasn't a plain sawn board.
Yeah.
Maybe quarter sawn poplar is the bee's knees, and it looks. And if lumber was sawn as quarter sawn, would it be more stable? Would it have a different color characteristic with a really tight grain? I don't know. Sort of like saying I hate red oak because all you see is that big cathedrals of plain sawn oak and oak veneer on office furniture in kitchens, but then you look at rift and quarter sawn red oak, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. And it's just the way it's been milled.
Let's bring back poplar. We can do this.
Popularize
poplar.
Everybody's favorite wood.
Our slogan can be, please popularize poplar.
It can't be a PP. It needs to be a PPP.
PPP.
Please popularize poplar.
Okay. Say that 10 times fast.
Mike, do you have a most embarrassing moment, or do you want me to pick your most embarrassing moment? Because I have been thinking about this in all of your smooth moves, which was the one that probably mortified you the most.
Yeah.
It was when you were working on a student's piece. You were trimming up the tenon and didn't lower the blade and just cut the tenon right off.
Just knock that sucker right off.
I was thinking about this on the whole drive-in. I was like, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? What's he going to say? And that's what I thought it was.
Yeah. No, it was definitely, it was going to be something I had done to a student's piece of work, which is the most mortifying thing you can do. I am like so afraid to touch anyone else's work for fear of messing it up. And I had actually forgotten that one.
Sorry.
Or blocked it out. Yeah. And like right when you do it, you just go, okay, we can fix this. Thank you, Ben.
I meant to do that so I could show you how to fix something like this.
Let's answer one last question. Oh, we have Chris's.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Siri, read last text from Chris Becksvoort.
You have recent messages from Chris Becksvoort. Chris Becksvoort said the grain on the base follows the grain on a case sides and bottom. It's all about coordinating wood movement, and the angle is a lot less than 45, since both pieces are different sizes. Would you like to reply?
Yes. Thanks, Chris! !
That's the outro.
This might be the best podcast ever.
All right. This last question is from James. Thanks for what you do. I've been exposed to a ton of knowledge and helpful info by listening to y'all. I started sketching out a wall shelf tool holder to hold my most used tools when I stumbled onto a pic of one that looked just like what I envisioned at the Austin School of Furniture and Design in Austin, Texas. There's got to be a simple answer. And Mike, I will show you the picture afterwards. What is the best way to make two shelves side by side at the same height? Forgive me if my terms are wrong, still learning. One center tenon on one shelf and a double tenon on the other. So there's basically 3 mortises evenly spaced through the center upright. Dowels in each side, probably not as strong, but easier. I've always avoided shelves, and most furniture does as well. I'm sure that there's a simple answer, but as a newbie, I thought I might be oversimplifying, or there was a trick I don't know of, even though for me, that will be stretching my skills. So yes, there is, for audio-only podcast listeners, basically 3 uprights. And in those uprights, shelves between them, and the top shelf and the bottom shelf are at the same height. Right? Is that a good way of describing what you're seeing? And yeah, it looks simple. And then you think about it and you say, oh, and then on the sides, you can see that there's through wedged mortises on the sides. So you see that and you say, that center upright, what's going on there? And I'm with you, James.
It's a good question.
It's a really good question, James. Everyone should head on over to Austin School of Furniture on Instagram and follow them. It's a great account and it's a great school. And Amanda learned to woodwork there. So there you go. You should too.
I have a guess, and I think it's the same as your guess.
Ooh.
That's poplar?
I think that's more like ambrosia maple. But so how
looks like cherry to me.
How are we doing that? Are those 2 separate boards, or is that one board?
That's notched out, half lap style, like Becksvoorts wall case.
It's a haunched half lap.
That's what I think too.
Right?
That's what I think.
Okay. That's what I was going to say as well. Yeah, it's funny. You see that, then you see the mortises on the sides, and you think, okay, well, those must be 2 boards mortised into the center. Instead, they're probably the horizontal boards are probably notched along the front, and the vertical centerpiece is probably notched along the back, and they fit together. I think in addition to that, if you just do a notch and you slide them together, half the board is kind of unseated. So if then you run a shallow dado on each face and a little tongue on that, basically you're locking everything in together. It's a modified half lap, haunched, tenon-ish thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can send you. Chris does it in a couple pieces.
That's what it's going to. That's why I thought. Yeah.
Fits very on theme. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is the Chris Becksvoort show. I think it's that ship that.
Yes. Yeah, with
that wall cabinet.
Oh, yeah. You could go on that shelf
shelves.
too.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I always think of it tied to that wall shelf thing with a floating
the asymmetrical
drawer kind
thing.
of thing.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
He does that, and the thing that's brilliant about Chris's technique there is doing that notch. It gives you like a spot to route out perfectly. Because doesn't he route that half lap out? It's like the joinery becomes the template for the half lap.
So, okay, yeah.
Or is that? Am I making that up in my head as how I would have done it?
I don't know.
Because you know how sometimes you do that. You read an article and you go, "Oh, that's cool," or you could do this, and like I feel like 30% of my job is like figuring out alternate ways of doing the same thing. So you could do the dado for the shelf and then route out the negative, the half lap aspect off of the dado.
Yeah.
I cannot remember. I'd have to, I feel like he did one of them on the table saw with a dado blade. So, and then one with the router.
Yeah.
So he may...
I think that's how he did it then, yeah.
I'd have to look again.
Yeah.
It does...
Text him.
No. I can call him.
We could do a whole episode of just you texting Chris and then Siri replying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That would be good. Steve Latta did, I think it's like Bookshelves in a Weekend or something.
Oh, yeah.
Article.
That's a great article.
Okay.
Steve Latta, like the master of federal furniture, makes this like wacky 70s hippie looking shelves, which is super cool. He had a really good technique for that. I believe I'd used that on occasion.
Huh. Yeah, there's a lot of ways. Okay, so let's say you wanted to do mortises, though. What would you have to do?
Like if you didn't want to do that half flappy thing.
Yeah.
Well, I would probably have the center divider not extend above and below the cross pieces, but have it shouldered in between, and then you can just do through mortises going up through the top and down through the bottom, and then wedge those guys like the sides are wedged.
Yeah, I was thinking that works well. Probably better than what I was thinking. I was thinking of sliding it in from the back, like grooving that's the one side of the center board and then the inside of the other side and sliding it in from the back if we weren't
having that center be two pieces and
no, just one. So you'd have to actually mortise and wedge it and then run the groove to slide those two shelves. It's convoluted for sure.
That'd be
But you asked.
If you're losing any integrity from having the two non-continuous sides, there is a hanging cleat below the top shelf and a really wide cleat below the bottom.
Yeah.
That's going to give you plenty of sagging resistance there. So you do have continuous pieces going across there.
This is this piece is a beautiful example of the whole like have every piece offset from every other piece.
Mm-hmm. Big fan of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Smart.
It's a nice little
But
tool
I
shelf.
also picked that up from Sam Malouf.
Really?
All of his furniture had offsets and the drawers were inset from the fronts. And he said, it's so much easier to do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else? Oh, there was a recommendation that came in. This listener recommendation from Declan. I stumbled across a show on HBO Max recently called The Craftsman. The show is about master craftsman by the name of Eric Hollenbeck, a guy in his 70s from Eureka, California, who does some amazing work with equipment that's older than himself. Pedal power scroll saws, a single pass shaper that makes molding wooden gutters out of 4x4s, and lots of other crazy stuff. It's kind of scary to watch them in use. Safety is not a big deal. No safety glasses, no respirator, no push tools. Hands are scary close to the business end of the machine. It's like working a suspense thriller about woodworking. Well worth the watch. So not a how-to, but if you have HBO Max.
Not instructional woodworking content. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I checked out the trailer.
Yeah.
It looks pretty good. It's like they build it as a reality TV show, but it's kind of this dude talking about his years. This is from the 2-minute trailer. His years of woodworking and how long it took him to become an expert at what he does and all the renovations he does. And it looked pretty good.
Cool.
He looked likable. He seemed likable.
Cool.
Knew what he was doing.
Well, thank you for sending that in, Declan.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thank you so much to the Unlimited members and the Fine Woodworking subscribers. And thank you to everyone who's given the gift of a fundamentals journey to a young woodworker who's learning their way through this craft. I think it's a pretty cool program, and I think they will too. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer on the podcast, send them into shoptalk@taunton.com. If you're interested in reading articles we mentioned in the show, head on over to the show notes at shoptalklive.com. And we'll see you in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye.